Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our newest edition of Shots of Legends. In this edition, we bring you this very iconic, so special guest. We bring you this special actor from way back to 1985. Someone who performed alongside Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, DMX, legends like Eric Roberts, Dolph Lundgren, Van Damme, and a lot more. This shot is very special because we'll be talking about James Caan, a legend from The Godfather, who has passed away recently. And we'll be analyzing the process of embodying a character in a film. And we'll be talking actually with Sir Patrick KilPatrick. I think you already know about these legends of the film industry. So stay tuned to this chat, and don't forget to follow us on our social media. Right. I was going to thank you before we start our chat. I was going to say truly thank you very much for granting us this privilege. It's actually a truly honored to be able to speak to you. So I grew up watching some of your movies, and I was talking to a friend of mine. He said, "Oh, I know Sir Patrick." So I said, "Look, I will be talking to him in a couple of minutes, in a couple of hours." And I can't hide this. I'm actually excited right now, and I can't hide my emotions. And I hope you understand if sometime I just get a little bit anxious or excited the way I can control, because it's really a privilege to be able to talk to you. So.
Well, it's very sweet of you. No, the honor and privilege is mine.
No, thank you. Thank you. So we have a couple of questions for you. And okay. The first one, we're just going back to the past a little bit. So since 1985 to today, what are the great lessons? What are the memories? What can you tell us about your path as an actor?
Oh, Sergio, there's too many. I literally wrote 600 pages of a book just to try to recapture those memories. And even when I finished that first process for 4 years, other things would come back. You're talking about the process of memory. It's hard to beat working with Steven Spielberg or, I remember the horses that I used in Westerns very profoundly because they were very memorable animals. The number of people is so numerous that it really takes a cataloging of them. You're talking about a life. When you're my age, if someone asked you that, there's many thousands of memories that are occurred. Whether it's the directors, the producers, the writers, the locations. I was very lucky to go to beautiful places all over the world, to these places, and that's very, very memorable. Whenever I finish a job, I just did a movie in Scotland, and I look around myself and I go, say a prayer of thankfulness, because I never know that I will ever return to that place. So there are many, many memories. That's one reason for writing a book.
Yeah. But when you look to the past, what was the meaning of being an actor at the time, and how do you analyze the film industry in the modern times?
Okay, when I look back, how did I become an actor? Is that the question? Or?
No, how do you analyze? I was talking about what was the meaning at the time of being an actor? Do you feel it's the same sensation, is the same feeling in the modern time? And how do you analyze the film industry in the modern times?
Well, the act of acting is in many ways the same, even though great people come and go. The process of creating moments when you're acting is really the same process as it's always been. And really that becomes the central reason for you wanting to do it. You either enjoy that process or you don't. The business has in some ways changed profoundly. I would think the biggest difference now, among many differences, is the audition process is very different because now it's done by self-tape. So someone from anywhere in the world can record themselves and send in the audition if they know that mechanism. Whereas in my day, most of my career, it was you went to a room and there was the director and the producer and maybe the casting director, and you were actually performing in front of the decision makers. Now it's much more, and that was accelerated because of COVID. Yeah. So now it's much more, that's one big reason. So there's many, many more people competing for any particular job because it's all done digitally. That's a profound difference. And I'm actually very grateful that I grew up and had most of my career in that process of actually going into a room and performing in front of people. You still have to do that if you're competing for a television series. At some point, they'll have you in front, and then you're auditioning multiple times for one role. So how does that affect today the business? I think in my day, an agent could call the casting person and say, you have to see this person. I'm not so sure that goes on so much anymore because it's all digital. It's like 3,000 people being submitted. That's a big difference. I mean, I'm very involved in producing and screenwriting now, as I have been for many years, but that takes up a lot of my time. I'm not so sure that's different at all. It's still the same process. So that's a big, big, big difference. The audition process has changed significantly.
But do you still remember the biggest inspirations? Who were you inspired by to enter in the world of cinema?
Well, when I was growing up, I never gave a thought to becoming an actor. It wasn't even a thing in my consciousness to become. It was I was raised on movies, and a lot of my life took place watching movies. Do you have drive-ins in Mozambique?
Yes, yes.
You do?
Yes.
So the people drive into the theater and it's outside?
No, but actually it's complicated because we're closing our cinemas here. So I would say no, actually, because we don't have a film industry actually here. We're still developing the ideas and actually scarce. We lack some conditions to build a strong film industry here in Mozambique. So that's why I would say no for that question.
Well,
yes.
We can come back to that, but well, when I was growing up, you went to a theater, and the theaters were really grand. Sometimes they had an orchestra that played along with the movie, and that was a throwover from the silent era, where they didn't have sound, so they had an orchestra. But so many of the theaters that I went to as a child still had that orchestra bit. But of course, sound was there. But we also had a thing called drive-ins. And drive-ins where you got in your family, America being a car culture, you got in with your family to a car and you drove into this big giant field, and you took the speakers off of off of the poles, and you attached it to your window. And it was a big family outing. And so as a teenager, much of teenage life when I was growing up took place in drive-ins, and that's where I got exposed to movies, was drive-ins. And of course, my father took me to movies at a very young age. And I still remember that very, very vividly. So movie culture was very much an American thing. It really was a French thing and an English thing too. But since I was growing up in America, and culture, car culture, that's what it was. Some of that has come back because of COVID, because the theaters shut down for a couple of years. Yeah. So people started going back to drive-in spaces. Now, of course, people are going back to theaters because of Top Gun and all the Marvel movies and things like that. So you mean to say there is no movie business at all in Mozambique? There's nobody picking up a camera and telling stories?
Yeah, we have short films here. We don't have a good industry like in Nigeria, like in Hollywood, or like Bollywood in India. We don't have a stronger film industry, but although we do have some features, but I think they are not even medium productions. We are still growing.
Well, this is another way that the business has changed profoundly because of the streaming services and Netflix and all of that, that there's an opportunity that didn't exist when I was growing up for foreign films to have a huge impact. So someone from Mozambique could pick up a digital camera and tell a good story, and that can find distribution in America now, whereas when I was growing up, you could have the best film in Argentina and it would be difficult to get distribution for it. But so I would urge people in Mozambique, young people particularly, to pick up a digital camera. They're not that expensive. Pick up a couple of books on screenplays, and they're available, used copies on Amazon, and start creating movies, because there's never been a better time for Hollywood loves to discover films from other countries now. They really do. And it's a brilliant time for young filmmakers to learn their craft. I mean, the reason Spielberg is Spielberg is he started making movies when he was 11 with a silly little camera. And so people should pick up a camera, and then they should call me, and I'll come and I'll star in it for them. I'm to some extent joking, but someone in Mozambique should start telling stories.
Yes, but we
you don't have to go anywhere.
Yes. Yeah. But I was going back to 1984. At that time, you performed in the Toxic Avenger, and 1 year after, you performed in. You were part of the film The Insignificance, alongside legends like Tony Curtis, Teresa Russell, and Gary Busey. What are the memories about those times? And can you talk a little bit about the feeling of being part of that era?
Well, for me, I mean, the biggest feeling was I was really very, very happy to be studying acting and to performing it and it taking off. That's a very exciting time in anybody's life if they just start working. And you're absolutely right to find yourself along. It wasn't just Tony Curtis or Teresa Russell or Gary Busey. all of whom were legends in their time. But the director, Nicholas Roeg, was a huge, 2 weeks before I got that movie, the universe seems to always set me up for whatever's coming ahead. Like recently, at the beginning of COVID, I got invited to Taiwan. And like 2 months later, I got hired to write a script set in Taiwan. Well, 2 weeks before Insignificance, I went to a theater in the East Village of New York, and I saw a movie called Don't Look Now, which was Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie, and it was directed by Nicholas Roeg, and I was blown away. And I thought, well, sure enough, 2 weeks later, I'm standing in front of Nicholas Roeg. And yeah, it was pretty amazing to work with Tony Curtis and Teresa Russell. My first scene was with Teresa Russell. And of course, she was, you know, a goddess. And she was playing Marilyn Monroe, who was a goddess. So yeah, it was pretty exciting. It was really fun. And I thought I stayed friends with Nicholas Roeg his whole life until he passed away, unfortunately, at 88, but a great master. He was doing things in 1984 that people are still discovering in movies now. And, you know, very, very much a visionary filmmaker. A lot of people don't even know who he is now, but he was a tremendously visionary filmmaker. No, I was just going to say.
I'm listening, sir.
Well, I've worked with Gary Busey since then, and he's an interesting character. So the other day I started looking at some YouTube videos of Gary Busey to try to know more about him, because I only knew what I knew of him from working with him. And it was really a kick, because I saw in a film about Gary Busey, I saw me in Insignificance in the movie, so that was kind of fun.
You're performing in more than 107 films and TV shows. What are the jobs, the works that you love the most, and what do these numbers represent to you in your career, in your life?
What was the second part?
No, I was saying that you performing in more than 107 movies and TV series, and I was asking about the feeling of these numbers, and what are the milestones? What do you recall, and what are the lessons you have learned in this whole process?
Whoa. Well, on one level, I'm very proud of my longevity, just to be still working after all these years. But mostly, I'm not thinking about the past that much, because I have lots of ambitions now, both as a screenwriter and a producer and a director and an actor as well. I mean, I just did this movie in Scotland, and it was one of the most fun experiences I've ever had, because they work very differently over there from America, and I just had a fun time. But your question about which ones did I like the most? It's a very good question, and I've answered it many times. The truth is, I like every job for different reasons. And it can be from you're in a great place, a location, you discovered something about your own craft on something. It can be something as simple as the memories of the people that you worked with. Generally, it has to do with the people that you're working with. But, you know, a little thing like you do a Western in Canada, and I could go fly fishing at lunchtime in the river, or again, riding the horses. There's all always interesting things to be had when you're working on a movie or a television series. I love to look at people and watch how people function. And that's always fascinating because people are everything from glorious to wacky. I mean, I'm sure you like watching people.
Yes.
They're always a source of amusement and intrigue. So I've loved every job I ever did, actually. Yeah. Although writing is sometimes challenging, very challenging, particularly if you're on a deadline, I love writing as much as I love acting. I even love raising money for movies. A lot of people who are artistic don't particularly like that aspect of it, but I find it artistic in its own way. So I try, not always succeed, but I try to be having a good time in whatever circumstances I'm going through. I don't always succeed on that, but sometimes the most difficult things, often the most difficult things are the most rewarding. I mean, the first week that I was directing, acting, producing, and I had written a script, it was brutal. I mean, it was just so much work. I almost was overwhelmed, but it changed me in a good way. So I try to have fun all the time, or to find the reward in whatever you're going through. So I've loved all of them. No. Give me a job. I'll tell you why I loved it.
Yeah. So can you talk about your memoir? I know you recently launched your memoir, "Dying for Living," confessions and sins and confession of a Hollywood villain. Can you talk about that? What do you want to tell us in this book? What are the lessons? What are the advices? And what can we expect from this book?
Well, like most things, the funny thing about writing, like let's suppose you write a script, and then a year later you write another script. You've changed as an artist in that time, that year. So when I wrote that book, it actually was 600 pages, so I split it into two books. The first book, I wanted to do certain things with it. I was kind of devoted to scandal, and I've always been devoted to telling what I think is the truth about a set of circumstances, but you have to tell the truth in an interesting way. And I think I wanted to honor, with that book, honor some of the great writers that I admire, like Hemingway and Hunter Thompson and Fitzgerald. And so I think I was perhaps a little bit more literary than I would be the next time going out. Also, I think when we launch Volume 2, which is all about show business, I think I'll be less devoted to scandal. I was very devoted to scandal, but I also wanted people to understand where I came from and why I thought it was unique and why it was helpful as an actor, where I came from. There's a lot of Hollywood stuff in it, but the first one dealt a lot with how I was raised and where I came from. And we all have an energy, like you have an energy that allows you to do what you do. For some reason, I had an energy that the universe projected me into doing exactly what I do. And I think, I hope people will read it and learn something about acting, learn something about Hollywood, and learn something about their own lives from it, you know, because I'm very healthy and I'm very big and I've done my own stunts and things like that. So sometimes people can look at someone like that and think, wow, they haven't been challenged at all in their life. But we're all challenged, every one of us. Somebody said, every person you meet is fighting some sort of war. And that's true, I think. So I hope people enjoy the read. That's why you do it. I actually initially wrote it to court my wife, you know, so I would write her a story a week, and I was trying to entertain her and get her to fall in love with me. And so I guess I succeeded. We've been together 10 years.
Yeah.
So then I had a draft, and so I decided to, I had a lot of stories, Sergio, so many stories. And I thought they were interesting.
Yeah. Now I hope to read that book one day. So.
Well, I hope you enjoy it. You know, I was raised in an environment where my parents would always applaud me if I came up with a new word. So I probably used too many words, too many big words. Yeah. But I was playing with words, and I like to play with words. It's interesting, playing with words is important, but if you're writing scripts, the communication is more important.
Yes.
You have to make it sing, but it has to, the other person has to get it. And we have an expression, don't write a script for one mind, your own mind. You have to write a script for other people's minds. But I don't know if that it makes sense, but writing is about communication, and it's not about self-indulgence. It's about communicating something to somebody else, making them laugh. I hope people laugh when they read the book, but I think they're also going to be shocked. You know?
Yeah. But going back to 1987, actually, you performed in The Quick and the Dead alongside Sam Elliott and the others.
Yeah.
This is a movie that portrays a story of two friends who protects a satellite and the wife. Do you still remember this movie? Can you talk a little bit about the process of embodying the character you have been given to that role?
I remember like it was yesterday. The first thing that comes to mind is my horse was named Trigger, and he was the best movie horse I ever had, and he was very beautiful. I was raised around horses, so I really appreciate horses, and he was a magnificent horse. But that also took place in Flagstaff, Arizona, and if your audience comes to America, Flagstaff, Arizona, it's a very interesting place because you can stay there in a little hotel, and all around Flagstaff, Arizona is the most amazing, varied terrain. Like you have national forests, you have the red rocks of Sedona, you have a great volcano, a meteor hit the earth many, many millions of years ago and left a huge hole there. So you have that, you have the desert, you have mountains covered with snow. So it's a place where lots of different landscapes exist. And that's why it's great for Western. So I remember the beauty of the landscape. And of course, Kate Capshaw, who married Spielberg, I remember her great beauty. And Sam Elliott's presence, he was very cool and fun, very quiet, you know. One time I was doing a little scene, and when he finished work, Sam would go up and he would get a beer, and he would get up and he would watch whatever was going on the movie while he was drinking his beer. So I was a young actor, and I was asking the director why he wanted me to do this certain thing. And I heard this voice from way up on the top of the rock go, just fucking do it. And so that was Sam Elliott. So, and he was right. Just do it. You know, so excuse my language. I hope.
No, it's okay, sir. It's okay.
So anyway, he was a man of few words, and he, which brings up the political correctness. Never mind, I shouldn't go there. You know, he was recently embroiled in a little bit of a brouhaha because he said some negative things about this movie, Power of the Dog.
Mm.
And then he apologized for saying them. And I was so sorry that he apologized, because people should be able to express their opinion and not have to apologize just because of some notion of political correctness. I mean, don't get me wrong, if you say something wrong, you should apologize. But if you say your opinion about something, it's just your opinion.
Yeah.
But anyway, he was humbled recently on that, and I was sorry to see that. No, I'm straying into the political now, which is always dangerous turf.
Yeah. I was going to ask about the really purpose and the meaning of acting for you. What is it important to feel yourself on set? How do you feel yourself? And what is the advantage? Maybe you can, I don't know if we can talk about the advantage itself, but what is the meaning and the purpose of acting?
Well, I think the meaning and purpose of almost everything we do is to try to make human beings better people. If I think of great novels and great movies and great acting, if you can make people feel emotionally, then you've succeeded on something. And entertaining people, I mean, there are a lot of reasons. Some people just need relief from their life because life is very difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I particularly like movies that can make people laugh or be emotionally engaged. And I think that's the meaning of art, whether it's painting or novels or movies, things that move people in some emotional manner. If I have a criticism of some movies, it's that there's too much emphasis sometimes on special effects and not enough emphasis on the emotional effect that they convey to the audience. There's a lot of crazy stuff on the planet, and I think that movies and art should help people to either escape that and entertain them, make them laugh, or it should make them feel and make them better people. So what I think the value of acting is the same that I think the value of paintings are. Goya's paintings of the Spanish Civil War, it's all the same thing, you know, to connect us with some sort of universal truth. You know, when my company, when we're doing a movie, whether it's the writing of it or the production of it, the attempt is to take people to a place they've never seen before, and also to wow them. I mean, it's a circus, you know? It's a circus, but it's also supposed to be a circus that that makes people feel better about themselves. If you go back to circuses coming to little town, imagine what it was like to be in a little town and to have 50 elephants and a marching band and people all dressed in pink suits and wild animals and beasts and everything to come to town. And you're in a little town whether it's in Mozambique or Chicago, you know, Illinois or something like that. Chicago's not a little town, but a little town in the middle of America or a little town in the middle of India. Well, it's a show, and shows do things for people, and that's why we do them. So for me personally, I'm just happy I found something that I'm pretty good at, you know, and the same is true of writing or any activity. I think it's really important for people to find something that they feel really good at, that they're providing something of value to the human experience. I have a lot of fun at it, and it seems to entertain other people. So I'm blessed.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like you always feel like you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, but it's nice if you can do something and have people go, wow, that was really good. You know, you know,
No,
it doesn't matter if it's baseball, or collecting garbage. I don't know, you know, it's like, it doesn't really matter as long as you feel good about it and other people go, wow, that was really cool. That made my life better.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you about your portfolio. You have a legendary portfolio. In your work, we find the death warrant in 1990s. In the 90s, we find Blackwater way back to 2018 with Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren, and we find jobs like Under Siege 2 with and Beyond the Law with Steven Seagal. We find Maurice Chestnut, and we find the DMX in those movies. We find the Billy Cobbs. What do these films represent in your life, in your career?
Well, they're all action films. That's sort of the connective tissue. I've been mostly involved with action movies and action television, which I think to some extent came out of, I was always a physical person, having done a lot of athletics to begin with. But each one of those movies that you talk about is a whole discussion in itself. I mean, let's take Under Siege 2. I mean, I've said it before. I mean, I was going through not a great period economically, and I didn't have a lot of money. And so 12 hours later, from having no money, I was in Colorado getting paid a lot of money and living in complete luxury at the top floor of a hotel in the most beautiful part of Colorado, in Vail, Colorado, one of the most beautiful places in Colorado. So I call it a true Hollywood moment, because I went from a low place to a very high place economically and having a lot of fun on a movie. One of the things that was so great about that movie was that every stuntman in Hollywood was there. And I really enjoy generally working with stunt guys, because they're a particular breed of person, whether they're male or female. You're talking about really gutsy people who risk their lives and their bodies all the time, and at the same time they have a really cool sense of humor, kind of like cowboys, I guess, in some ways, or cowgirls. They, you know, they don't take a lot of grief from other people. So I had a blast. They were really funny times. You know, you're talking, there's nothing more fun than doing a big action movie in a beautiful part of the world. And we had New York actors and LA actors, and everybody was kind of full of themselves and having fun. And That was Under Siege too.
Yes.
I remember Morris Chestnut as a very, very sweet man, really nice, very talented and good looking. I remember I just watched a movie on TV, and it was starring Brenda Bocchi, who was in that movie as well. So it was interesting to watch her work prior to Under Siege 2. Katherine Heigl was on there, and she was just a kid. She was like 16 years old, and we had a discussion, her mother and Katherine and I, about whether they would ever do a movie that involved nudity.
Mm.
And I remember having that discussion with them. I particularly remember the director, Jeff Murphy, because he was such a really sweet and talented guy. When I think of Under Siege 2, aside from the fact that it took place in beautiful Colorado on a real train and all the stuntmen, but Jeff Murphy was doing something very revolutionary at the time, because he was editing and blending 7 or 8 different actions into one sequence. And that seems like kind of standard stuff now, but I don't think up to that time anybody had done that. You know, the movie would jump from one fight to another set of actions to another, and he built it in a very skillful way. So I'm very grateful to him for that. When you're on a big movie like that, you're a small part of a big operation. So you're kind of hungry to do more, just do more. I look back on my acting at that time, and I think I'm so much better actor now than I was then. But you're just kind of winging it. The script was not very developed when we started, which was unusual because it was a huge studio movie, I think $70 million. And yet the script wasn't fleshed out very much at all. So we were sort of grabbing at little things to make, you're always looking for things to make yourself stand out, but also make it work within the context of the movie. I think about the only thing I succeeded in doing was picking the hat that I wore, because that was unlike anybody else who was on the movie. It was a crazy experience. My first scene in that movie involved, I'm standing there and I had one line, which was, "We've got 30 seconds to get out of here." That was my line. Only here was the shot. There were 2 helicopters that came up the canyon. I was parked in a Hummer, a military vehicle, all covered with camouflage. It took a long time to put the camouflage trees and everything all over the Hummer. So the 2 helicopters come racing up the canyon. I explode out of the camouflage with my Hummer. I drive up to the side of the train. Just as the helicopters land and disgorge a whole bunch of terrorists, they run up to the train, blow the door. The door was set with a fake charge. They blow the door. They go all the way through the train, shooting people. And then the cameras sweep down and go to me, and it finishes the shot with me saying, "We've got 30 seconds to get out of here." Yeah. So if I screw up the line, they've got to send the helicopters back. They got to reset my Hummer under the camouflage. Yeah. They got to put all the guys back in the helicopter. They got to reset the blowing the train and all the machine guns and everything else. And I thought, oh my God, I better not screw up this line.
It's a big responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. So, and anybody who's an actor knows that having a tiny little line is sometimes much more difficult than saying a big long speech, because there's a lot of pressure. Everybody expects you to be able to say a tiny little line. So fortunately, I got the tiny line out, but I had a moment of creativity. So I decided, I'd never met Jeff Murphy, the director. So I decided, how about if I say, I was talking into a walkie-talkie with my line, how about if I say love and kisses, we've got 30 minutes, or I say, we've got 30 seconds to finish this, love and kisses. You know, it's something weird that a terrorist might say, or something, just being silly.
Yeah.
Well, so I walk up to Jeff Murphy to get his okay to say love and kisses. And he's talking to somebody else, and he turns to me and he snarls in my face and he goes, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life." That's how I met him. And so that only increased the pressure that I felt on this line. And so first of all, I didn't really feel any pressure. I kind of went back and I thought, God, that's really crazy. He's really out of his mind. But we became really good friends. And I guess he must have been under some sort of crazy pressure. And anyway, I said, love and kisses. We've got to be out of here in 30 minutes or 30 seconds. And you see, I can't even say the line without screwing it up now.
It might have been a great adventure.
So anyway, I remember a lot about the movie. We actually saw eagles every day. So imagine working in some place where you see eagles all the time.
Yeah.
It was really cool. And I have a lot of remembrances of Steven Seagal, and all of them are in the book and in volume 2 that's coming out. And, you know, you mentioned another Steven Seagal movie.
Yes.
I didn't even know I was in that movie.
Beyond the Law.
Yeah, and they called me one night. Somebody I knew from the production calls me and says, "Will you come down and be in this movie and play this club owner, and we'll give you X amount of dollars?" Whoa. So I said, sure. Well, they didn't even tell me it was a Steven Seagal movie. So then people started saying, "Oh, you're in this Steven Seagal movie." I didn't know. So sometimes you just like, sure. Hey, they called me and said, "Come and do this, play this club owner." There's some wacky stuff that goes on with every job. The guy they hired to come in the club was totally drunk. And so I was improvising a scene with a guy who was completely drunk. But in any case, all those stories are in the book.
But do you miss those good memories? Do you miss those good friends from the set? When you look back, you feel sometimes sad because of those moments that sometimes you can't call back, you can't bring them back, and you can bring them to the present. Do you remember a movie that made you cry? When you sometimes remember the films you've been on, is there any movie that you look back and say, wow, that movie actually is one of the greatest piece of my life?
Truthfully, no, because I'll remember it fondly sometimes, but mostly I'm into the process of creation on a daily basis about today and what's ahead. I don't really, it's not that I don't go down memory lane or something, but you know, I sometimes talk to people about their high school years or something, and they go, "Those were the best years of my life." Well, that I think is really sad, because I try to make the best years of my life where I am right now. Because God knows we're not here forever. Yeah. I hope if I'm here a year, or if I'm here 20 years, that's the best 20 years of my life. I don't think about, if I stop to think about it, I think you are so lucky, Patrick. You've gotten to do all those really wonderful things. But honestly, maybe I should think about that more with gratitude, and I should at some point. But mostly I'm thinking about the challenge that's ahead of me. You know, my good friend Costas Mandylor, who's a wonderful actor, and he just was in this movie Dying for Living that I wrote and I'm directing, and with my wife Heidi and Maria, who works here with us, and a great team. But he said to me one day, he said, slay the dragon that's in front of you. And it's true. That's what I try to do. I try to slay the dragon that's in front of me. You know, there's so much to accomplish and so many things. I sometimes think you really need 3-4 lives just to try to do all the things that you'd like to do. You know, I'm still trying to figure out how to be a rock star, although without being ridiculous while I'm doing it. I think there's nothing more ridiculous than somebody who doesn't have talent for that to pretend that they're a rock star. But I'm going to try and figure out some movie role where I can actually play that and not have it be ridiculous.
I think you'll be perfect on that.
What?
I was saying that I think you will be perfect in each role you might get in the near future.
Well, I would think, you know, I watch these guys like Led Zeppelin, and you know, you think of the lives they've led.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they get melancholy about the 60s or the 70s or whatever, when they were playing in front of hundreds of thousands of people, where every gig, it was $200,000 in the bank. And you have a guy like Robert Plant or Jimmy Page, and they've lived their entire lives like that. You know, I get the sense from watching Jimmy Page that he's a very happy guy. He seems to get a lot of joy out of whatever moment he's at. So I think that's really what I try to do. I'm getting better at it too. I think I'm trying to stay that way.
In 1996, you performed on the Razor alongside actors or legends like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and we find James Caan in that movie. I was going to ask you about the feeling of this movie, and can you talk a little bit about James Caan? We recently sadly lost James Caan. Can you remember the laughs, the moments, the emotions you had with him on set?
Well, Jimmy was really a very likable guy. I mean, he was very funny. He was very smart. I always say that working with him was like, in America, in upper state New York, they have a circuit where they used to have camps, and comedians would go all around New England and upper state New York, and it was called the Borscht Belt, and it was where Jewish comedians went up and performed in front of holiday people, primarily Jewish, in upper state New York. And so it was called the Borscht Belt because they ate a lot of borscht. And Jimmy always struck me as like a Borscht Belt comedian because he was always joking and always cracking wisecracks. And he wasn't shy about giving his opinion of people that he thought were fools. And but he was having a good time. And, you know, you're talking about a guy who was a rodeo rider. I mean, his body was banged up from rodeo. And if you know anything about rodeo, do they have rodeo in Mozambique?
We had once, but it's closed now.
Right. Well, if you're a rodeo rider, you're used to getting banged up. And, you know, that's not for chickens. That's not for lightweight people. And he was a rodeo rider. And I guess he got banged up a bunch, but you're talking about a man's man and a guy who wasn't afraid to put it out there. And so I always had a great time. And my character was always getting beaten up by him, you know, because I'd be playing the villain or the jerk or the arrogant guy who thinks he's full of himself or something. And Jimmy would always end up humbling me in whatever character. His character would always be humbling me. So he would beat me up all the time. And he would forget his lines.
Wow.
And when he would forget his lines, he had it in his head that if he beat me up harder, they'd be able to use the footage, which is not true. It's not true. You'd have to do it again. So finally I'd say, Jimmy, just because you forget your lines, if you beat me up harder, they can't use the footage. And he laughed. And so, yeah, he threw himself into it. I had a great time with him. He was really fun. It's I'm grateful I had that with him, and I'm sorry that he's gone because, you know, Hollywood sometimes doesn't have such great men anymore, in my opinion. You know, there's some good guys out there. I think Chris Hemsworth's pretty strong man, you know, and Chris Pratt, and those guys are good guys, but they went through a period where they didn't have a lot of guys like James Stewart, or Gregory Peck, or Henry Fonda, and those kind of guys who were, you know, you're talking about guys who stopped being movie stars and went and fought in World War II and were heroes. So I think Jimmy was pretty much of a warrior and a hero, and I miss him.
So how do you pretend to transmit your legacy to the new acts and the filmmakers? When you analyze your legacy, there's a lot to learn from your career. How do you intend to transmit these advices, this knowledge, your legacy to newcomers, to new actors and filmmakers?
Well, I used to teach actors a lot. I went through about 15 years where I was a teacher, and I tried, and I think I did to some extent convey some of it to them. Recently, I went to a place where you sign autographs, the Hollywood Autographs show, and I had a couple of my students come in and thank me for some of the things I told them, because at the beginning, it was a little hard for them to get it, but they now are like 30 years old and they get it. So transmitting your legacy, you know, really, I'm not so sure any of it means anything like that. What really means something is if you did something on a day-to-day basis, because who knows what legacy gets passed along. I mean, I think of my father and I think of what his legacy was, and his legacy was how much I love him and how much I appreciated his life and what he did during his life. That's really the legacy that you have. I hope if somebody looks at because occasionally I do think of this, I think like, if somebody sees these movies in 100 years, what they'll think of it, because I see movies that are almost 100 years old, and I appreciate character actors and the acting that I see in that, and I know who they are. But I'm not everybody. I'm enthralled by that. You know, I'm not so sure that the generations will follow this, but hopefully some people who actually think about it will follow it. I mean, did you ever see a movie called My Darling Clementine?
Yes, I've heard about that. I've heard about that movie.
It's a great movie. I mean, I love movies, or Serpico, or Spartacus, the original Spartacus, or Braveheart, or 300, or Den of Thieves, or I mean, I see all the little people in those movies, and I appreciate them, and I know them by name. So I guess hopefully there'll be a couple of people who will remember my name, and hopefully maybe my kids will appreciate what I've done and get some enjoyment out of it. Some of it is pretty silly, but some of it is, I hope that somebody will go, oh, that was pretty good. That was pretty good.
In 2008, yeah, you performed in Parasomnia, movie directed by William Malone. But 5 years before, you were part of one of the greatest films at the time. I'm talking about the Minority Report. In this film, you will find actors or legends like Tom Cruise. We find Colin Farrell and Niall McDowell. So can you describe the process of embodying any character? Is it easy to live someone else's life in a role?
Well, movie acting is made up of little bricks, and they're called scenes, or they're called camera setups. So what I try to do is, you do all the work prior by learning all the lines and playing with stuff and doing all of that foundational work, and then you get on the set and you have to look at, I went to a dinner once and I saw this comedian, and he got up and he told jokes, and they were so brilliant, all the jokes, because they were all about the people that were there and about the environment that he was in. And I know he was only there for like 3 or 4 minutes. So in 3 or 4 minutes, he made up a whole set of comedy that was based on the environment that he'd only been in for 3 or 4 minutes. So you learn all the lines and you do all the background of whatever you're doing. And then when you're acting, you find yourself in an environment very quickly. Where is the camera placed? What's the frame? What's the lens the camera person is using? So what of my actions are actually going to appear on camera? And then I'll try and play with that little bits, because movies are just made up of little bits, generally. Sometimes you try to get a take for a long, long time that's closer to like stage acting, all the way through the sequence. But truthfully, film acting is just little bits. And so in a very quick amount of time, you try to look at the environment and identify, how can I make this tiny little bit something that is cool and memorable and effective and original. So that's really what I'm trying to do when I'm mostly on stuff. A lot of it happens very improvisationally. You know what I mean by that?
Yes, I understand.
Really on the fly. You have to do the foundational work, but you've got to be really willing to improv, whether it's language, and to sort of let it go. Some of it has to do with channeling, allowing the universe to just open yourself up and allowing the universe to just flow through you and let you come up with whatever you come up with. Almost like opening yourself up to whatever the universe is going to fire through you like a bolt of lightning.
Yeah. You recently, sir, received a lifetime achievement award, and in 2019 you received an award for Best Villain in Vegas Movie Awards for a movie you performed in, which is Borrow the Time, alongside Eric Roberts. what is the importance of awards? Some people say like awards are nothing and don't have actually a bigger a meaning for them. But when you analyze the achievement you have got until now, what are the significance of them? What do they mean to you as when you look to your career since 1985 when it all started and until now, until the present times?
Can you see, because my screen went black, what's the significance of my screen going black? Can you see?
Yeah, there's nothing there.
Yeah, there we go. Now it's back. I don't know. Winston Churchill said the only reason to be famous is because it's easier to find work. So getting awards is fine and fun. There you went black again.
Yeah.
There we go. Getting awards is cool, but I say they're only important because it's sweet and it's really important, and God knows that's a nice thing. But I think of them also as it makes it easier to find other better work, and so that's the value to that. It's always nice to be recognized by other people. Again, I think I would feel really bad for people who feel like they're not acknowledged by the universe. That's not a place I think everybody should get acknowledgement for what they do in the universe, and probably deserve it or should. You know, I started out in sports, and if you were good at sports, you got acknowledged for it. You know, your friends acknowledged you for it, or you went to a party and they said, hey, yeah, that was cool, you know, or they knew who you were when you walked into a room. So that's kind of a thing that you get used to. But is it really important in the grand scheme of the universe? I don't necessarily think so. I mean, you know, we're just a microcosm in the universe. So all you got to do is play with what you got to play with. I mean, I got an award lately. There was Icon of the Year award from the Hollywood World Film Festival. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. But then the next time I went to the festival, it was Icon of the Year 2021, Hollywood Film Festival. Hollywood World Film Festival. So I went to the event. They had it like 2 months later, and there was somebody else who was getting the 2021 Hollywood Icon of the Year award too. It's a lovely lady named Christina Loken. And I thought, well, there's two of us who got this award. That's great. And so, yeah, it was fun. We certainly promote it because it's good to keep yourself out there and have people know that because people forget, people forget really quickly. I don't spend a lot of time doing social media because I'm really busy doing script writing and raising money and acting when I'm acting. But when we have something that's valuable about the work, we try to promote it, and because people need to know that you're doing something, that it's you're current. I mean, if I never did another promotion, I'd be okay. My life would be just fine. It's not like my soul is connected to it, but you keep doing it because that really great role might be coming to you because somebody sees that. I mean, as a producer, I'm aware of that stuff. You mentioned Eric Roberts. Eric has done so many movies that there was a feeling that he had done too many movies, that his value was diminished by him doing so many. So when Vanity Fair did an article on him and applauded him for doing that, that was a good thing. And I was happy for Eric, because you shouldn't be punished for working a lot. But that's part of the game too. I mean, I tried to cast an actor recently in one movie that we were doing, and the distributors were like, "Nah, too many bad movies, too many mistakes." And so it's kind of I don't think about those things too much, but they're part of the game.
Yeah.
And award part of that too. Look, let's face it, I was watching this John Voight movie. John Voight is an Academy Award winner. Okay?
Yes.
He won an Academy Award for Midnight Cowboy. Okay, that alone should be enough for the rest of your life. But you can't always cast John Voight, you know, because of other reasons. In some cases, because of his politics, which I think is a terrible thing. I think politics should be removed from the deal. But there are forces at play, and they're not good ones. They're totalitarian ones. So you have to think what the effect is you're having on an audience. I think people should be able to disagree politically and come up with, it doesn't have anything to do with the person's art. What I mean, I don't care if I disagree with a person. If a person is a fine actor, if I disagree with them politically, I don't give a damn.
Yeah.
They can have whatever opinion they have as long as they bring it to the acting table. I guess we're talking about the cancel culture now.
Yes, yes, yes.
So
there's a lot of that nowadays.
Yeah, I don't believe in it. You know, look, if somebody says something terribly reprehensible, that's one thing. If another person just expresses an opinion, that's another thing. As I say, for me, I don't believe in it. Is a person a brilliant actor? That's all I care about. You can have your own private beliefs about whatever you want. I don't really care. Just bring it. The only thing that is ugly to me is if an actor doesn't bring it to the table.
Yes. No. So I was going to ask about the feeling you have when you recall the move you have performed alongside Bruce Willis. I know you have been a part of so many movies. We said before, TV series. We can talk about the Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles. When you look to these jobs, what is the real meaning? What is the, I mean, I was going to ask about the real formula of success, because I'm talking about these moves, but I'm seeing, I'm looking to your portfolio as a producer, as an actor, as a director, as a teacher, as a professor, as a speaker, as a journalist. What is the formula to success? How do we find that goal that we've been looking for?
Well, if there's a formula, I think the first thing is to get a good education.
Yes.
You know, education comes in a lot of different forms, but I'm a big believer in getting a good classical education in arts and sciences and liberal arts and reading. Certainly, I think reading is very, very helpful. let's start with, if there's a formula, let's start with that. You get a really good education. And then I think you have to put your energy out in a manner that exercises that education and that whatever embodies it. Look, it doesn't cost anything to watch great movies. It doesn't cost anything to read great books.
Yes.
So I call it communing with masters. So it's free. You can do that. You can watch great movies. I think the problem becomes when people put less than stuff into their heads, and there's a lot of that around. And the truth is, figure that you're valuable enough. We're talking about the formula, okay? Yes. The formula is the same, whether it's writing or journalism or medicine or acting or whatever. But the first thing is to get a really good education and commune with the masters. How did masterful people do it? If you want to study writing, then you study Flaubert or Moliere or Ernest Hemingway or Fitzgerald or Thackeray, or if you want to study, and by the way, I'm sure there's Mozambique writers who are extraordinary. So you study how they do it. I mean, when I was learning about writing, I literally would mimic Fitzgerald and Hemingway and Hunter S. Thompson, and you can learn to write like them. You're not the same as them, but you can learn to write like them, and that's a good exercise. And when it comes to acting, you look at all these great movies and see, and you can also read biographies of those people and learn things. That's not the same as doing it. But for actors, I always think some stage experience is a really good thing. To perform in front of a live audience is a good thing. It's not totally necessary. There have been great actors like Jack Nicholson that never did theater, but a lot of great actors. Is our picture frozen? No, it's not. I see you blinking.
No, I'm just listening.
So, good education, commune with the masters, steal from them, but try to make it your own. And then sooner or later, you have to take it in front of people. And that means either auditioning or starting a theater company or filming your own film, probably all three, which is something I did. So I wrote plays, and then put them up on the theater. And then work really hard and ask yourself, what could I have done differently? What could I have done? The difference between a guy like Marlon Brando and a person who's no good at acting is the choices they make.
Yes.
You know about making choices if you haven't studied Marlon Brando and seen how he made choices, or Idris Elba.
Yes.
How did he make, what choices is he making? How can here's the other thing. Don't use the old tricks. Like KilPatrick has tricks that he can use, that he's used in movies that are effective. But you ask yourself, I don't want to use those old tricks. I want to come up with new tricks. And by the way, I don't even want to come up with tricks. I want to be there in the moment. That's really important. And remember, it's a communication. For acting, it's a communication. You're communicating to whoever, and mostly you're living in the moments. I could talk forever about how to prepare an acting part, but that's not really the same as actually being there in the moment, because you have to forget all that other stuff to some extent, at least, and move on and live in the moment. That's probably the most important thing. Live in the moment.
Yes. So
So
when you look to your career today, do you think that there is still something to achieve? There's still something that you still need to achieve, a goal, a bigger dream to fulfill. Is there anything that you still want to achieve when you analyze your career today?
oh, hell yeah. I want, we're looking for a big name actor to come in and play my brother for 3 days. I want to have that happen today. I've got this one movie, we're in mid-production. I want to finish that and make that a success. I'm polishing a script right now that I want to see get done. And we've got other scripts that I've written that I want to see every one of them get done. And in my humble opinion, they deserve that. They're like children. They need to go to college.
Yes.
So, yeah. And as an actor, yeah, there's always more stuff to do. I mean, remember I told you I went to that autograph show to sign autographs?
Hollywood, yes.
Well, there were some guys there just in the same room that are literally geniuses. I mean, they've been on big shows and I grew up watching them and they're just brilliant. And I went up and I talked to them and they're just brilliant. And one of them was 91 and he said, yeah, and I'm available for work. And so it's not something, what we do is not really something you retire from unless you choose to do that. You mentioned Tony Curtis.
Yes.
From what I understand, Tony Curtis was happier in the end painting than he was in acting. And I can understand that. So it's important to do something that you really feel fulfilled by. I continue to be fulfilled by acting, and I continue to be fulfilled by writing, and I continue to be fulfilled by producing. So I think I'd probably keep doing them. I could be fulfilled by being president of the United States, but I don't really necessarily think I'm going to put everything aside to go for that. The only thing that I wish somebody would do a better job at it, you know?
Yes.
Because I think it's important for people to be engaged in their governments, because if they don't, then their governments get taken over by people who are less than. I'd love to see better leaders running things. Yeah. So I don't think they're particularly gifted at it.
Yes. But I have this particular question about the politics, but I will leave this question to the end of this chat. For now, I was going to ask about that.
Completely off the table, if you want.
Yeah.
I just think it's important for people to get involved.
Yes. Yes. Okay. I was going to ask about your work on theater. I know you are founding member of Divine Theater, and you used to work as assistant director on Broadway, etc. Can you talk a little bit about that, the experience you have had on theater?
Well, it was really, really beneficial on a lot of levels, because if you can learn a play, an entire play in like 3 days, then the memorization demands of film and television are really not all that difficult, you know. And when I was in a theater, I had to do that. You get a job and you're going to start performing in 3 days, and you've got to learn the entire play in 3 days. So there's that. And then the other thing about a rehearsal period it's all rehearsal, because if let's suppose you're starting performing on the stage on June 1st, Well, you're gonna, and the play is running till July 1st. You're gonna be discovering new things all the way through. So what happens is you end up becoming really much faster. The game is actually to discovering all those things before the June 1st opening, particularly if you're opening in front of critics. I would go to the theater every day, 3 hours before the performance, and I would go through the whole play, walking around the stage, going through the whole stage. That's how I warmed up. And I feel very, very blessed, aside from the fact that I worked with some really extraordinary people like Tony Richardson, who was one of the great British directors, like Nicholas Roeg, and was Vanessa Redgrave's husband and Natasha Richardson's dad. And I worked with Sir Laurence Olivier's son, was a stage manager, and that was really cool. I got to act with John Goodman, and that was really, really cool to go head to head with him. There's something about a live audience that is really, really cool. But the same thing exists on a movie set, and the live audience becomes the crew and whoever's standing around. Yeah. So it's really the same kind of a thing. The difference on a stage is you're not really working a camera as much as you would be in a film. I like both of them. I haven't done stage for a long, long time, and it's very, very, the word is strenuous, very, very demanding physically, depending on the role. But a lot of movie roles are very physically demanding too. So they're both really, really vital.
Yes. But where do you feel complete? Theater or filming?
Oh, if I had to choose, I'd just work on movies. If I had to choose, but I think about theater once in a while. There's not much economics in it unless you're in a Broadway show or something. And I am tied to the economics, because I have a family, and if I get them into something that doesn't generate funds, then they're going to be affected as well. And so it would have to be a combination of circumstances more than simply the act of doing a theater. I mean, I could do that if I wanted to. I could, there's probably theater productions here in LA I could get involved in. I'd much rather put my energy into movies because I think the economics are larger and the landscape and reaching people is much bigger.
So can you talk? We still we just heading to the final of our chat, but we still have 2 questions. For now, I was going to ask about the experience you have had on filming Ninth Walks alongside Michael Rourke and Eric Robert way back to 2019. Can you just share a little bit about the process, the laughs, the jokes on set about this movie? Can you talk a little bit about it?
Well, although I've worked with him many, many times, Eric Roberts and I actually didn't act together in Night Walk. He acted on different days than I did. Just like I was in a movie with Meg Ryan, but she and I never met during the time that I had met her later, but not in that particular movie. So Eric, I really can't comment on acting with him that. Whenever I've worked with him, he's been fantastic, and I love him very much, and think he's a very disciplined actor. He has his way of acting, which is very different from mine, but he does it so brilliantly. Mickey Mickey's a very, very special creature. And as well, Mickey is an immensely talented actor, immensely talented, and at the same time, he's a special creature in the universe. So he was using cue cards, which is something I've never done. I did it once for a commercial, and it was valuable. I have never liked to go down that route. I like to learn my lines because I think for me, that's part of the value of whatever I can bring to this. Now, Eric does cue cards too, and Eric does so many jobs, I get it. He doesn't even have time to learn the lines. And he does a very skillful job with it. Some people do a really skillful job with that. It's something I try to avoid. I almost want the discipline of my brain being worked out that way by learning the lines. Now, if I thought my performance was better by that, I would do it. But like Marlon Brando used a radio mic and someone would repeat his lines into him towards the end of his career. And it worked. I'm still in the learn my lines deal. And I hope to stay that way as long as possible. I hope to work with Mickey again, too. He and I get along really, really well. And I think it's important for Mickey to respect the people that he's working with. It's not important for me necessarily to respect them because I'll do the same thing whether I respect them or not. I think Mickey acts one way if he respects you, and he acts another way if he doesn't. And for me, if I take a job, I always act like I've taken a job, so I'm going to do my very best no matter what happens.
Yeah. So if there was something you could change in this whole process, what would it be? If you analyze the whole process when it all began until now, which decision, which thing, which choice would you change if you just realize that thing could give you a different perspective of acting, of achieving quickly the goals you have set?
The only thing that two things come to mind, and really I'm not so sure either one of them is relevant, but I think being overly loyal to agents who are not getting you really good work is a flaw. Young actors, when they say to me, well, I have an agent, and I go, well, how many times have they sent you on jobs in the last 6 months? And they go, well, they haven't. And then I say, well, you haven't got an agent. So if I had to look back on my career, I think maybe, but again, it's absolutely useless talking like this. But I think after I did Minority Report, I might have switched agencies. But I was very loyal to my agent. And at the same time, that didn't work because we worked out great before that, but it didn't work after that. But I stayed with him out of loyalty because we had worked very well together. I think in retrospect, I probably would have liked to have changed agents right at that particular moment. But I'm not a very ruthless person in that regard, and I'm very loyal in that regard. I'm not so sure that loyalty falls into the thing when it comes to agents. But because of that set of circumstances, I became a producer and a writer when acting would slow down for me. And so I cannot fault the universe for the way that it turned out. Now, the other thing, you asked me what I would change. I actually would, I think if they would be, this is going to sound terribly arrogant, but I think they should have made me the head of one of the studios a long time ago.
Yes.
Because I think there are great people running studios, but I also think there are some great people that are not, there's some not so great people running studios. And sometimes that goes on for decades. And the quality of movies suffers because of that. And I think the team that I have with me is actually capable of creating great movies to the nth degree, but we always have to find the money for them. And if I was head of the studio, I'd just say, go, and hire good people to exercise those. And I think the actual world of movies would be better for that. Because I think there's some people in control who really don't know much about what they're doing. But there's also brilliant people out there. So you have to say, I think we live in a golden time of material in a lot of ways, because there's a lot of good stuff. But there's a lot of lame stuff that gets greenlit too.
Yes.
And there's a lot of good stuff that doesn't get greenlit. And I think my journey, if there's anything, is not alone, because it's a team sport here. We have learned what makes a good movie. And we've learned how to craft them. But it's not just the crafting. You have to organize the financing for these movies too. And a lot of times, quality of material is not what defines that. But you keep swinging and you're going to get on base. That's to use a baseball term. So I think sometimes it'd be really fun to run a studio. Be head of production, not to run the studio and make sure that the fire truck has water or something, but to be the head of production. Like it would be great to go to Mozambique and start the Mozambique film business.
No, you will be very welcome there. It will be a pleasure to have you here.
Tell the leaders of your company, of your government, that I'm ready to come and do that.
I will do my best. I'll try to propose it to the Minister of Culture here to see if it's possible to give you an invitation to come here.
Well, we've done a lot of work in those regards. We've developed film schools for Nigeria, and we have movies ready to go. And by the way, you have great stories there already that just need to be cultivated with the people that are there. So there's no reason why Mozambique can't become a center for global filmmaking. So I'll look forward to meeting your Minister of Culture.
Yes, I will try to establish this contact, and let's see what happens in the next days. But I will do my best to see if we can make this come true.
Well, I'm sure we'll be able to succeed if we put our hearts and minds to it.
Yes, we can succeed. So
we can put a lot of people to work, and we can teach a lot of people how to do crafts that they can feel really good about themselves, and bring what we need, and also cultivate what is there, because I know that there's very, very talented people there.
Yes.
So it sounds like a lofty aspiration, but it's very doable.
Yes.
So I look forward to working with you.
No, it will be a pleasure. I hope to make this come true. But before we finish this conversation, so I was going to ask about the actor, the screenwriter, and the director mean you like the most nowadays.
I like them all. I like them all. I would have to say that producing, I like them all. If you have a good team, they're all enjoyable. And we have assembled a really good team. And they are all incredibly rewarding, and they're all the same thing. And you can't have one without the other. Okay. When I teach young people, some of them not so young, some of them 60 years old, and they get careers. But when I've taught them, it's about all four of those things. It's about writing, acting, producing, and directing, and to some extent teaching too. All of those disciplines are what's involved. If your audience wants to be successful at what they're doing, then they will learn about all five of those disciplines. Because something chemically happens to you as an actor. If you know good writing, then you're going to become a better actor. If you're a producer and a director, you certainly need to know about acting and writing. And you need to know about teaching too, motivating people, because you have to be able to do that, to run crews of people and to get people to work together as a team. Movies is a team sport. It's not just one person. It's vision coming from a lot of different people.
Yes.
So I like all of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a pleasure to have you here. So on Chat with Legends, as I was saying in the beginning of our conversation, I grew up watching some of your movies, and before we realized this chat, I had a privilege of watching some scenes of some movies from Eraser to and other movies, just to recall or remember a little bit about your path, about your career. So we are very excited to be able to talk to you.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you too, and I hope you like Catalyst is coming out. That's
Yes.
Director Christopher Falkins. You mentioned Parasomnia. That's one of my favorite movies. I wish Bill Malone would direct more movies.
Yes.
But Catalyst is coming out, and our film Dying for Living will be coming out, and I hope you all enjoy that.
I saw a trailer about the Dying for Living on YouTube. I think it's already available there. I'm not sure if it's the final trailer, but I saw something about Dying for Living.
We call it a teaser. It's just from the first.
Yes, it's a teaser.
First 2 weeks of filming. We have to go back for another 2, possibly 3 weeks to finish that one. So onward and upward. Okay, it was a great pleasure. I'll see you soon.
Okay, see you soon. Wish you a great day, sir.
You bet. You too.
Yeah. What a lovely chat we had today. So electrifying, motivational, and opportunity to learn a little bit more about the path, the career of Sir KilPatrick. Today we spoke a little bit about the process of embodying a character. We learned about the environment or the feelings of being on set, and we had the privilege of learning from Sir Patrick a little bit about the job he has done alongside the legends like Bruce Willis, like Sam Elliott, legends like Tony Curtis, Tom Cruise, Colin Farrell, Maury Chestnut, and Gary Busey, among others. It was a privilege and a singular opportunity to go back to the 80s and know how acting used to be. And it was a privilege too to come back to the present so we could do a little bit of a comparison about these generation, these different generations of producing film. It was a privilege to have you there. We felt your presence. We hope to have you in the next episode of Shots of Legend. So stay tuned to our next guest and don't forget to follow us on our social media.